Hi there, my name is Helena Kaufman and I'm here with Moondust Cosmetics for another session with our founder and primary researcher at Moondust Cosmetics, Dr. Moondust. But first, let's introduce what's going on today. We are well into the new year, and for most of us, we've made resolutions, and for some of us, those resolutions revolve around the environment. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Moondust, founder and primary researcher at Moondust Cosmetics, to kickstart a conversation about actions we can choose to take as we move forward in our environmental awareness. Welcome, Dr. Moondust. Welcome to a new year.
Thanks, Helena.
So we're barreling into another year in terms of environmental events. We've had COP26. It's almost a distant memory. It's behind us. But climate change is definitely still remaining on the top of our minds. So what have you to say, I wonder, about the outlook, Dr. Moondust? Let's get into some things that we can do. What do you have to say to us today?
Well, Helena, I think really we've got to put the last year's events in context. Firstly, the devastating wildfires, the deadly floods in the fall, the continuing coronavirus pandemic. What's going on? Well, I think that there's not much scientific doubt we're at the forefront of climate change.
Mm-hmm. So we wonder, and our viewers might be wondering, what can we actually do about it? It seems so overwhelming. I wonder, how can we change our actions as individuals this year?
Okay, so I've actually made a climate action list.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you hear it, you may say, oh, I can't do that one. But, you can make personal choices that will then influence policies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if there's a list, let's have it.
Okay, so
what's number one? Mm-hmm.
We got to stop our reliance on fossil fuels, which we've heard over and over again. And personally, I think that hydrogen-powered cars are a good option. They combine atmospheric oxygen with the hydrogen fuel and generate electricity, and the only byproduct is water. So I've got my first hydrogen car on order.
Wow. First of all, with the only byproduct being water, that's exciting. And it's doubly exciting that you've got a car on order.
Yeah, and they're quite responsible about it because they only release as many cars as they know can be serviced by local hydrogen bars. And that's how it works. They release them one at a time or a few at a time.
Well, I'm not driving this at this point, the stage, and I'm very rarely in a car. So I'm trying to do my part by walking, and I'm using public transport. And I'm not currently a biker, but I see wheels in my future when spring comes around.
That's all good.
Thank you. Is there another tip for us? We've got a
Yes.
series, I think, coming up. So what's number two?
So number two, we've got to halt deforestation in the old growth rainforests and jungles of the world, like in Indonesia and the Amazon. Deforestation is the conversion of forests to other use, like for farming and for human habitation. So we've really got to put a stop to this because what trees do is they convert carbon dioxide, which is a baddie as we know, into oxygen, and they store the carbon. And of course, the older the forest, the longer they've been doing this and the more stored carbon they have. And then number three is kind of related again. Deforestation also displaces myriad animal and bird species and destroys plant species. And this is significant because, for the future, there are plant species that haven't even been cataloged yet, and they may hold medical cures for diseases that are unknown at this point. Also, deforestation brings humans into contact with wildlife, and this can increase the chance of future pandemics like coronavirus by increasing interspecies virus transmission. And a nice point to note here is that Indigenous people have done a lot to bring these sorts of issues to the forefront. And then number 4, of course, population control and food security is an essential part of any discussion, any intelligent discussion about climate change. It's no secret that humans have overpopulated the planet, and we're running out of resources like land, water, and food. Climate change is affecting, crops, and farmers are having a harder and harder time. So these are important things.
Yeah, and they've certainly been, they're more top of mind for us, even those of us who are in urban settings and not particularly close to the earth. We are hearing more about it, and we are understanding the impact that we have, and certainly even for a topic for another time about voting with our dollars and our various shopping patterns. So you've mentioned that we should think about our plans to reproduce when we're at a stage now to form and grow a family. So it's really become quite personal. It's even in our interpersonal relationships. So we should be thinking about these things as we plan our personal futures.
Right, and it's a very simple equation, because if every couple has 2 children, then the population stays about the same.
So that kind of brings us to the, what's going on in the household. I think you have a tip for us about how we manage our containers, our plastics.
So number 5 is about plastics. They're not biodegradable, and they're not readily recyclable. So we should really limit our use of plastics. And they are currently clogging the world's oceans and seas, and they contribute to global warming by absorbing sunlight.
So I personally am working to counter this based on our conversations at Moondust, and also the general feeling out in the marketplace. So I'm shopping for food, for example, for items with little or no plastic packaging. I'm looking for bulk. I'm bringing my own reusable containers, and it could be as simple as a first step of avoiding using plastic bags, which certainly in British Columbia and Vancouver we have now taken on, and taking my cloth bag or a reusable bag wherever I go. So the steps are very small, aren't they, that we can take?
That's something everybody can do.
Yeah.
So number 6, unsustainable logging without annual quotas and replanting is irresponsible, and it depletes this whole the cooling effect that trees provide to the whole planet. But on the other hand, at the same time, wood is a valuable biodegradable and recyclable material. So logging should be approached like tree farming so that the crop is continually replenished. It would be nice, though, if we can leave the old growth forests alone.
It would be, and it would be beautiful, and it would be environmentally sustainable. So I'm guessing that there's another point coming up here, because when we think of logging, of course, it's beyond construction. It's also a source of energy. So I wonder if you have a tip now coming up about another source of energy for our number 7.
Right. So number 7, nuclear energy is not clean or green because uranium mines are toxic to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
The radiation from uranium mines is exposed once you start mining, and it negatively impacts animals, plants, and humans. And also, uranium mines can pollute waterways, often with radioactivity. So, related to that, we have number 8.
Yeah.
Nuclear energy is not clean or green because nuclear fission power plants, whether they're last generation or next generation, generate radioactive waste. And radioactive waste causes cancer in humans. It pollutes the environment and also negatively impacts other species. And there are many, many scientific studies on this that support it.
And this is where your work, Dr. Moondust, overlaps, that Moondust Cosmetics is involved with the science of skin care and sun care protection in particular. And of course, we are working and living and taking care of ourselves within the environment, and then the environment has these other issues that you're bringing up. So this is a beautiful example of where your work as a cancer biologist overlaps with the science of skin care and the beauty factor, as well as our personal health. Yeah. So
right,
we are in the environment.
The process of cancer, its initiation, is the same, whichever kind of cancer we're talking about.
That's right.
So, number 9, we should really be looking at renewable energy sources like wind, water, solar, because, they're not generating these ill effects on the environment. And they are renewable sources. Now, fusion energy and hydrogen power are 2 promising future candidates.
So if I'm a speculator who's environmentally conscious, I'm likely to look for investing in clean energy stocks. I know I've slipped in the stock market in here, but it's that concept of voting with our dollars and in literally investing in our futures and our children's futures. So
absolutely, and I'm minimizing my exposure to petroleum and totally cutting out nuclear power plants. So then that brings us to number 10. Some scientists say that going vegetarian and non-dairy is an important climate action. And this is because there are methane emissions, which also contribute to the warming of the planet, and these bad emissions from cattle and beef cattle, dairy cattle
yes.
and beef cattle. So, and it also seems very cruel to raise these animals just for meat in this horrible indoor industrial setting where they never get to go outdoors.
Yes, that's the objection. and the understanding now that even people who do not wish to go vegetarian or fully vegan and are still consuming animal products as their source of protein, although we all know that there's protein in the plant world as well, in abundance. But sort of that's the small step that people can take, is to reduce their actual animal consumption, and also to look at how it is raised for our consumption. Yeah. So I'm almost vegetarian. I'm mostly plant-based. I've shifted to a plant-based diet in pursuit of health, as well as more compassion these days. And I have to say, and some of it is exposure to you and your personal habits of food in our discussions, is that I find personally, the more plant-based I am, the more compassion seems to ooze out of me. So somehow it's a really loving kindness circle. And back to you, Dr. Moondust. You've been a vegetarian for much longer than I have, certainly.
Yes, I am a vegetarian, and it's a personal choice. But at the same time, there's always more to consider. For example, a vegan friend recently brought it to my attention that animals in the dairy industry are often treated in a similar way to animals in the meat industry. So I'm trying to limit my dairy consumption now.
Now, normally, Dr. Moondust, lists seem to stop at 10. There's some sort of a natural either 3 or 10. But I think for today's session, it sounds like you might have an extra bonus tip for us. So I wonder what number 11 might be.
That's right, Helena. So number 11 is perhaps the most important from my point of view, and that is that nuclear weapons and modern warfare is contrary to climate action because it pollutes the environment with radioactivity and radioactive metals for sometimes hundreds of thousands or millions of years. So, in fact, I think we need to end all wars and concentrate these resources on fighting climate change, which, let's face it, is the biggest battle of this century. So that's it. And, I think that's what we've got to do. And also help the vulnerable nations who are particularly affected by climate change right now.
Yes, absolutely. And that's more and more in the news. It's in our consciousness. And certainly the next generation has taken up the cause so admirably and energetically. Yeah. Thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for that. Yeah. So for today, there you have it. There will be more information and news coming out from Dr. Moondust as a result of her activities in research and publications. So look for that. There'll be more news about nuclear energy and some other interesting points. But for now, there you have it. We have our 11 points. Please look for more articles by Dr. Moondust, as well as on our website, her scientific pursuits, as well as the lifestyle articles and some very fun and everyday hopeful things that you can do to look after yourself, your family, and your healthy lifestyle tips. So for more science-based reports published by Dr. Moondust, head over to the website. And of course, for the lifestyle posts, you can always join our newsletter or find us on social media. The links will be listed below. Thank you again for joining us today, Dr. Moondust, and to our dear readers and viewers.